This first is a little strip about one of our members who lives in Tunga, just a little bit about her life, and then you get to meet Itweni. Itweni is Itweni Luago. Itweni Luago Samsung was the first person we hired at the Microfinance Institute, which is what does our actual on-the-ground daily work in Tanzania. And she's just a delightful character, is Itweni. She's just really we're going to have Itweni come over next year, because next year will be 5 years since we started the Microfinance Institute. So we're going to have her come over and have a meeting where she can talk to everyone. Many people know her. But first, here is Tonga Malenga.
My name is Angelica Kasimba. I am a rice farmer in Tunga, Tanzania. My family is originally from Lukani, a small village near Pomeran, where my husband was born. He worked as a guide and driver at Ruaha National Park, where we lived and raised our family of 8 children until his death in 2000. After he died, I moved with my children to Tunga, where I have lived since. Our children grew up here, and now some of them have found work elsewhere and moved away. I have one child living in Malawi and one who lives near Dodoma. My oldest children completed Standard 7, but did not go on to secondary school. 2 of my children are married and have children of their own, so now I am a grandmother to 5 grandchildren.
Over the years, Angelica has worked to improve her rice farm. When she started out, she had 2 acres of land for cultivating rice. She sold her crop, she would usually earn about $300 for the entire year. She had no access to capital, which limited her ability to purchase water rights, seedlings, and supplies. When a branch of IRINGA Hope started at Tonga Malenga in 2010, Angelica became a member. After saving enough to qualify for a small loan, she was able to borrow enough money to raise a larger and better crop of rice. Since then, she has continued to take out loans to increase the size of her farm and the quality of her crop. Her most recent loan was for $320, from which she has recognized a $470 profit. Since joining IRINGA Hope, she has managed to earn enough money to build a brick house, send one of her children to secondary school, and another to a teacher's college. She now has 4 acres of land in rice production. She is a community leader in adopting new growing techniques and often instructs younger farmers in ways to improve their yield.
I am very grateful for what IRINGA Hope is doing here in Tunga. Before IRINGA Hope came, we had no way to improve things. Now we have hope for our future and the future of our children. IRINGA Hope has made my life and the lives of my children and grandchildren so much better. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all of the many people who are helping.
Greetings from IRINGA. I am Itweni Samson Mwago. I work for the Microfinance Institute of IRINGA University. Also, I work with the IRINGA Hope Joint Circles, which together works with the IRINGA Hope United States to help the people from IRINGA. Seriously, there are so many excitements and encouragement from the people who work too, because our job is to go to the village, train people, and help them with different assistance. And the good thing is, you see people's life changing from one state to another, and have so many good things for the people who have been helped with the program with the people from the United States, and people from the University of IRINGA has been helping them. People have good houses. They are able now to send their kids to schools and universities and colleges, but they are able to improve their meals, eating balanced diet, and this had helped from malnutrition, which is the big issue in Tanzania for now. But also have people from government who really appreciate to our effort for what the IRINGA of the United States and the university are doing to the people, because this has helped to overcome poverty, which is the big issue here in Tanzania and other developing countries. So we are really excited, and we really like, because you work with the community, you see their life, and when you see the changes, that's the big thing everyone will like to see, and that is what, at the end of the day, the government of Tanzania, together with the people of the United States, they are all aiming at seeing people's life improving. So that's really something which everyone appreciates, and we really like what we are doing because we are dealing with people's life, which is really making sense to everyone in Africa and the United States. Thank you very much for your support once again, and we are looking forward for your support all the time, because what you are doing is have more sense, not only one people, but when you help a family or when you support someone to get a loan here, it means you are supporting not only one person, but 6 people will be supported with what you do for people here in Tanzania. Thank you very much.
I just love that. That's it. She is just delightful. Twainy was a school teacher, which meant she had a normal education. Normal education is 2 years after high school. And she was a school teacher then, and then high school teacher. And then she went back and got her accounting degree. And after that's when we hired her. And right now we're sending her to get her MBA in night school, so she should have that before long. But she's just a delightful character, just really is a delightful character. Well, Kent is going to talk to us a little bit about the economics of the poor, just because I think he has some interesting information. By the way, you know, it's good to ask questions just because then we feel like somebody's listening to us. There you go, Kent.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I wanted to talk about just what I call economics of poor, but just kind of, you know, help us realize what these people are kind of facing or how they live, or and work on that. So, if this works, Tom, I'll turn it on.
And I was going to say, turn it on, which I should have done.
How many poor in the world are there? If you look at the UN Millennium Goals, they want to cut the extreme poverty rate from 1990 to in half by 2015. On a world level, we can almost say that we've made that already. 52% in extreme poverty, that's $1.25 per day. On purchasing power parity, that's what that PPP is. It's not just an exchange rate, it's not just inflation, it's that $1.25 here, what we think we can buy with is equivalent to what they think they could buy with at $1.25. So when we think about living on $1.25 a day here, what could we do with that? How would we live? You know, that's the level of poverty that this is measuring, that call it extreme poverty. 1990, 43%, half of that by 2010, we've made that on a world level. But it's not everywhere. But even with that decrease, there's still 1.2 billion. You know, we can't stop just because we got half. There's still 1.2 billion. And if we count in $2 a day, that's 2.4 billion. There's still a lot of poor people in the world. And we're trying to help one little corner. If you're poor, you know, we think we have to manage our money well, but if you're poor, it's absolutely essential, absolutely central to our life to make it sure. But it's still very often fragile and incomplete. But also remember, the poor are probably better than we are at managing their money, because we have a cushion. We can get by with doing things not quite right. Now let's think about how they make decisions. In many ways, it's very much like how we make decisions. In many ways, it's very different. They're just as concerned about improving their lives as we are, and improving their children's lives as we are. They have that same goal, but a very different set of resources. You ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy? You know, just because they're poor, they still have it. Well, they're probably down in that physiological a lot more than we are. They worry about food, water, and air. Safety sometimes comes second, but it's there. They still worry about belonging and love, esteem and self-esteem and all of that. You know, they are still human. They're still thinking that same way. They aren't different humans just because they're poor. So that's where I come from. And it's not just about food, even though 50% of it, their income might be food. They still worry and they still spend money on medical, education, recreation, durables, funerals, marriages. They're a big thing in many of these. So, and that's what drives a lot of their spending and a lot of their money management. There isn't much left for savings, but they do, excuse me, there isn't much left for savings, but they do save somehow. Maybe not long term, but they don't have enough to get very far. They also face all kinds of other problems. Just because they're poor, often because their ethnicity, even with, we think of a country of Tanzania that's all Tanzanian, but there are differences, just like there are here. There are differences. $1.25 a day, that's an average. And it's not just that low average, it's a very variable income every day. They don't get that every day. They comes in, you think of a farmer, just like here, they get that income once a year, a couple of times a year, depends on the type of farming where they are. Their jobs, sometimes they have jobs, they don't have jobs all the time, they get a little money, sometimes they don't have a job. How do they smooth that flow so they have a more stable life, even though they're poor, even though they're low? Well, they do it through savings and borrowing. And as Paul reminded me last time, forgot to say, this comes from a study out of India and Bangladesh. So they went out and talked to the people, the poor people, and just, what is out there, what's available. But if you talk to the really poor, the ones we deal with, they don't have these formal financial services available, not even nearby, not even in the small villages. But they are often available. They do have such things in Tanzania and other countries, things like bank loans, savings, term savings, credit and debit cards, a little misspelling there. They can get life insurance. Those things are, if you're in a town and you have some money, you can get those things, but not always. There are some formal insurance, funeral insurance policies, but the people we'll deal with don't have those, but those are available somewhere around the country. There are other things available, semi-formal services, NGO loans. IRINGA Hope's an NGO, but the SACOs are wandering into that formal financial services, part of the law. The NGOs are the Western organizations that come in and say a loan service there. But we are different than that. We're a little more formal. The poor also have very informal savings. Savings clubs, credit associations, burial societies, salary timing, watching when they get paid and not paid. And there are others that are other savings loans, very informal, that allow them to work. They loan animals to each other. So they know that, we gave a cow or a pig to that person a few years ago, and at some point in time we'll need it and the family will give us one back. Very informal, very special names. There's also individual devices they have. Savings at home, we might do that, but they also have savings on the person. A little money tucked away in their clothes that they think of as savings. And there's also people that go to the city and send cash back home, kind of a savings, a financial service. Bilateral services, very much of a contract between two people, two families that this study found. Interest-free lending and borrowing, or with interest, pretty much privately back and forth. Money lending, money guarding. I don't know if we've ever done that here. That culture or that perspective, or your own personality that says that, I have a little money here and it's burning a hole in my pocket. I'm going to go spend it. Or the poor know that something might show up, or culture says, family member asks for money, I have to give it. Well, go find a friend you trust, have them be your money guard, either from your relatives or your friends or yourself. Say, you keep this little piece of money. I'll come back later and pick it up. You know, a money guard. There's saving system. You know, and there's pawning, shop credit, trade credit, rent arrears. You know, landowners know that sometimes payment doesn't come in on time, but it will come. So different ways to save and smooth that expenditures with that uneven, low cash income. Some average daily incomes out of this study. We'll get to Tanzania in a little bit, but I thought this was interesting. A waged car driver could make $1.76 a day. Again, that PPP means that that $1.76 is what we would think of as $1.76. Landless farm laborer, 75 cents. Urban domestic worker, $1.33. How many of you have gotten down to this one? South African urban self-employed sheep intestine seller. $3.87. You know, who wants to be the richest, highest income?
Yeah, but he lives all alone.
Yeah, you saw that already. I don't know if that's cause and effect. But, you know, $3.87 compared to 98, 73 cents. I showed this to my class, and not one of them wanted to be a sheep intestine seller. Not one. Who knows why? Funeral expenses are another big thing. And this is South African data, but I bet Tanzania data is very similar. How in the world do you, when you don't have enough money, how do you come up with it? But culturally you have to, somehow. Use of the funds, over on the right, undertaker 538. Need a tent for that whole group of family. Pots, food, a sheep. It's a big celebration or a big public event. $1,413 in this a couple of years ago. We wouldn't think about that much. Funerals are pretty expensive here. Really expensive there when you're making $1 or $2 or $3 a day. So where do they get it? They have that burial society they've been belonging to. They get some money there. 3 relatives gave them straight cash. Maybe some of that's that burial society since it's the same number. A relative rented the tent for him. A relative rented the cooking pots for him. A relative bought the sheep for this person. This is a woman, the brother died, so this, and was living with this woman, so the woman is having to figure out how to pay for all this. They borrowed some money from Aunt's Burial Society, borrowed from a cousin saving club at 30% per month. Not year, but month. Borrowed from another cousin, the sisters, the woman's grant money, and then the brother, the deceased grant money. All that came up with that total to pay for that funeral. Hopefully that was enough for society to say that was a good deal. Joe?
Yes.
Thanks for asking a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
The relatives obviously give a lot. And when I was, this is 20 years ago, in a jungle village in Kenya, our cook said, Jill, I have 8 children, so someday when I can't work at all, my children will have to support me. And so that's why we have so many. And then so many died.
Yeah.
And that made so much sense. I mean, I could certainly appreciate where he was coming from. And he was our cook, and so that was interesting. But, you know, then you lay it out here.
And how, yeah, such a variety of where they got the money
All the
from.
brothers and sisters and larger families.
Well, and a little different in Tanzania. I've been to a number of funerals, and at least all of them I've been to, everyone who comes donates money. It's just kind of expected. They
Yeah.
have, they usually have some going around collecting, and you all donate money, because it's the only way to pay for the funeral. So I usually throw in $50 and
And
everybody's
everybody,
amazing.
yeah,
But,
and everybody
They like to see me come to funerals.
Also, when we get wedding invitations,
Oh, yeah.
there's always a number there, a suggested amount that we would contribute. And they're usually fairly ambitious, or overestimate us.
it's how to survive culturally. That next time, maybe I'll have enough to help contribute a funeral or a wedding. I can't cover it all by myself or the family. Assets of the landless day laborer, moving on. Informal savings, $49. Interest-free loans out, interest-bearing loans out. Saved at home, 10 cents on the date that this was made. Saved on the person, $1. Saved with the money guard, at zero at this date and time, but flows in and out. Assets, total assets of $70.10. Liabilities of this day laborer, that loan of $33. In the assets, we saw loans out. At the same time, they've got loans taken out. $4, $10, shop credit, labor sold. Total liabilities of $52, add those together, net worth of $17.48. How many of us carry that much around on a daily basis? They don't have much. Let's move on to Tanzania. A survey, that study talked to individuals. And so it was individual numbers I was looking at. Here's a survey, so more of an average. Expenditures per person, per capita, for 28 days, 4 weeks. Back in 2007, I finally found that survey. Dar es Salaam and then the rural areas within Tanzania. Food purchased, 18,000 shillings. 6,000 in the rural areas, but they not purchased what they raised, a lot more food in the rural areas, but that still doesn't add up very much. Durables, medical education, telecommunications, cell phones. Dar es Salaam all ends up to be converting it up to $1.21 a day. Expenditures in the rural areas, 47 cents.
Actually, if you take out the non-purchase food, which is what they got out of their garden, it's about 34 cents a day
Yeah.
they're living on.
Well, being economists, we like
I
to
know.
include
I just
everything.
mean, when we think of someone's income
Yeah.
and compare it.
A cash expenditure.
34 cents
Yeah.
a day.
What I was intrigued with was that telecommunications showed up. It wasn't in the last survey, but it did show up in 2007. The cell phones are everywhere. So I would guess it would be higher when they finally do another one in 2 years. And here's just a graph of that. Even in Dar es Salaam, the food is 52%, and the rural areas 66%. Also includes the non-cash. Yeah. What did they live on is a way to see that. Household spending 75% or more for food. Urban areas 26 and 27 in these 2008-9 to 2010-11. Rural areas in general 68 to 63. If you look at Southern Highlands, where IRINGA is, a little better than most rural areas, but still over half their income, half their expenditure is just on food.
So why is it going down in the rural and the southern highlands and going up slightly in the urban areas? Is there...
I don't know for sure. It's 1%, might just be statistical error. The next survey might go different. It might be they're eating out more often in the urban areas.
But why would
Or
it go
they're-
down
Yeah, the income actually goes up or they spend more that way.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, I think their income went up slightly.
Income increases, that's the answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you notice,
But it goes up, but then they spend more out
Yeah.
eating or for food, yeah.
but there's also a difference, if you look at the malnutrition. Southern Highlands runs 38 to 40% malnutrition among the children. The urban runs 10 or 12%. And a big part of that is even if you're spending half your income and you're only making 35 cents of income, at 17 cents, you're not gonna eat any meat. That's kind of the bottom line. You're not gonna eat any meat, you're gonna be malnourished.
But, you know, this is also, this isn't their expenditures, this is a percent of households spending 75% or more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In the urban area, they can afford some meat. Because they're spending so much.
Well, they
more.
have more income,
Yeah.
so they don't have to spend as much on a lot of households. More people are richer. Still doesn't completely answer your question. And I don't have an answer, final. Summing up here, food insecurity challenges, why all that happens, lack of farm mechanization, seeds and fertilizer, lack or low farmer knowledge, lack of credit and savings. That's where we come in, stepping in. Health and many other reasons. I got into IRINGA Hope because I was with my ag colleagues, and they knew farming and fertilizers and all, and I'm an economist, and then I heard Tom talking about, this is where I can help out. I understand finance. So that's why I'm here. And that's one of their limits, that credit and savings part, and that's what we try to do with the microfinance. And we view it as not just a tool to build a business, but a tool of empowerment for those people. Helps them manage their financial lives, but also increases their confidence and hope for the future. If you're beat up and don't see any way, you know, to get a leg up, to start up, well, here's a little loan to help you out, increasing that confidence and hope. And we're working on not just microcredit, micro savings. They have to save some, but we're trying to get them, you know, here's a vehicle to save even a little more. And we had all those formal financial services that supposedly were around. But if you're poor and small and rural, they just aren't available to you. So we're trying to fill that gap. And there's many finance organizations around the world, and they all try and fill this gap between small risky borrowers and large banks. So we ourselves do that same thing, that developing self-help, improving our financial management, learning the ins and outs of a co-op as well as an individual, increasing their business acumen. We avoid telling them how to use their money. You know, you have to have a business plan, make money, income, but we don't tell them how to do that. We expect them to. And we avoid reinforcing the mentality that we're just going to keep sending money and they can keep spending it. It becomes their credit revolving fund. An example from a loan, typical farmer owns 4 acres. They're former British influence, so they also use acres. Traditional methods cost about 90 bucks an acre, but they can only afford to plant 3, and they end up with making about $100 per income after that, so about $300 per year. If they can get a $250 loan, they can go out and buy that hybrid seed, fertilizer, and spray for one of those acres, that 4th acre. They know how to do it, and that loan gives them a chance to do it better, to buy those things. They make 600 bucks just off that 1 acre after they repay. They end up with an income of $900, which puts them into middle class, lower middle class. And they paid the loan back so it can be reused again.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
They take out the loan for that 4th acre.
Yep.
I assume if they made $600, they must have sold what they made off of that acre.
Yeah.
But aren't there a lot of people that don't have the ability to sell it because they need it for their own family?
Well, they might not be selling all of it. And some, they do have to repay the loan. So they're selling enough to repay the loan anyway.
Okay.
And back to that, you know, do they buy that food or they produce it and consume it themselves? That little discussion that Tom and I had. That's why we count the non-purchased food as an economist, because it's, in one sense, it's income to them, but they just aren't getting it in the marketplace.
They could have sold it, but they didn't sell it.
Yeah,
Right.
in
They
that,
could have, but they chose
Yeah.
not to.
And it's sustaining their family.
in those
Right.
first 3
They
acres,
didn't even spend it.
they've already taken some of the crop to live on. That's part of the reason they only make $100 an acre.
Okay.
But they still have some land they haven't used, because they don't have any money.
So if they're if they're in a very remote area,
Many.
They'll get it to
Not
market, they'll
everyone.
carry it.
and that's my question, how do they get it to market?
Sometimes they carry it. Sometimes they put it on a bicycle. Quite often, a guy in a truck comes along, and instead of getting 40,000 shillings, which they get in town, they get 30,000 to the guy in the truck. So they don't necessarily
sell it
get
right
a
there.
good market price. They lose some, but they do get it to market because they need the cash.
So that does not become a huge obstacle to them.
It's an obstacle, but
But
they
it's not an
do it.
insurmountable obstacle, they get it done.
We'll
They
hear,
get
a
it
little-
done. They need the money, they get it done.
And then
we'll
they-
hear about a better alternative too when Tom talks.
Okay. Thank you.
Did that answer, was that it?
Yeah.
What are they growing on their land now? Or what is their major crop?
Maize, edible beans,
Onions?
onion, yeah,
Tomatoes.
if they're close to water, good water, it's onions, tomatoes,
What about rice?
Rice in some areas.
in some areas, yeah.
Tonga has rice, for example, but that's because of the river.
Pyrethrum?
Yeah, so in some, in the highlands, yeah, there's some pyrethrum around.
What's that?
It's a cousin of the chrysanthemum is the way we would understand it. It creates an organic insecticide, which can be processed out and then sold in the organic market around the world. There's MGK, a Twin Cities firm, does that in a neighboring town to IRINGA. But there's some other companies that do that too, but that's become a cash crop.
But the big ones are maize, onions, tomatoes, those are the big ones. There's even some peanuts in some places, but
Yeah.
maize, onions, tomatoes.
Enough, in the highlands, if there's more rainfall, they can grow a wider variety. And as you heard, Tonga Malinga's rice. Closing up, but looking at the time, why we're successful, we have Itwaini, Enoch, and Peter, and now Nuru has joined us in the last week. The local SACOS officers, they're the ones in charge, they're the ones that make decisions. We don't tell them, we tell them how to do it, but we don't tell them what to do. But they're very energized, a lot of talent trying to get that going. We IRINGA Hope, Itwaini, and the regional government people provide training and support of those local officers. They can take out loans only for producing income, not for a wedding, not for a funeral, not for school, only for producing income. We let them know what those rates are going to be, what the terms are. We give them that maybe up to 6 months, 8 months instead of a typical 3 months. Well, a loan to 3 months doesn't get the crop in the ground and harvested. They need a longer time. Part of our deal is that they only give small loans to get it out to more people, not one big one or two big ones. They have to have a business plan, and that local board reviews them. And a fairly vigorous requirement for repayment is my phrase. It's kind of a nice way to say it. And let's not forget Tom and Sandy and Paul and Sally, part of that success. More questions? I'll be around. Back to Tom.
All right, well, I'm going to talk a little about our status at IRINGA Hope. But first I have to turn this off. There we go. Whoops. Doesn't want to stay put, does it? There we go. Don't know why the machine's so slow, it just is. Okay, always ask me what SACOS means. Savings and Credit Cooperative Society. It's a small credit union. You used to find them in the US, you used to find them in, there's still some in Canada, and these are just very small organizations. When they get bigger, they'll become a true savings and loan at some point in time if they continue to grow. But this is a precursor, so it's a very locally based small item. Now, IRINGA, just briefly, everybody kind of knows, but we're talking Tanzania, right on the equator, right on the ocean. Within the country, we're looking at, here is most of the income is right here along the coast, where they have a lot of fishing and shipping and import-export, so there's income there. Right up along the top of the country here, you have Lake Victoria, you have the Serengeti, you have Kilimanjaro, a lot of tourist traffic, a lot of income from that. They also grow tea, coffee, a lot of export crops, so there's money up there. And in fact, you find most NGOs are also operating in these areas because there's better roads, better transportation. Almost everybody can get a cell phone. Where we work, a lot of places can't get a cell phone signal. There's one paved road, everything else is just a dirt rut. So it's quite a difference in the center of the country where we are, which is right in here. So to get there, you go into Dar es Salaam and you drive all day and you go up the African Rift. So you're going from sea level to about 1 mile above sea level. That's IRINGA. And that's where we are, right there. Population's almost all rural, 80–90% rural. In the area, 5th grade education, you walk through a village, you might find a book, maybe, in one book in the village. So people aren't particularly well educated, and they're not particularly literate because probably all they've ever seen is a Bible to read. There's just not much. They don't read and write a lot. The average income is $300 a year for a family of 6. That makes them tied, 6-way tie for the poorest place on earth in the rural areas. Average income in the country is $1,500 a year, and that's why if you can get them up around 1,000, they're just starting to enter what for this country is the lower middle class, is when they get up around there. A little background, in the IRINGA district, less than 1% of the population has any access to any financial services. Less than 1% has it in the whole country. Basically, people who live in town and have money can use a bank, and basically no one else can. That's what it amounts to. There are some other programs in this area that you can borrow money from, and I just named a few here. Lending groups, that's where women get together, or men, but usually it's women. They each bring in $1, put it in the pool, and once a month you get, well, it's probably 50 cents they bring in. Once a month you get $15. Doesn't help a farmer. It's once a month, it's not enough money, but they do it. Pride is a big program. They will lend you up to $20 for up to 3 months at 7.5% a month. Not much good to a farmer who's got all his money in the ground, but you can get money from Pride. FINCA, Mama IRINGA. Mama IRINGA at 50 will lend you up to $50 for up to 2 months at 15% a month. Still not much help for a farmer. So there are programs, but absolutely none of them really address the rural need. They just don't provide it. There's small amounts, high rates, short terms. It's not even the rate as much as they've only got a couple of months, and what are you going to do if you're a farmer in a couple of months? So it does help. Most of these programs are really meant for a merchant. Merchant's going to borrow some money, buy some stock, immediately sell it, pay it back. That's really where most of them make sense. Or maybe a seamstress who buys some material and quickly sells a dress. They don't really address most of the rural population, and certainly not someone who's farming. A little background. What's used in almost all of Africa is SACOs. This is not unique to Tanzania. In fact, some countries like Nigeria is rating 56% of their economic activity in that country is driven by SACOs. So this is really not that unusual to do it. They're all locally based. They're based usually on a village, and a village has got probably 200 households in it, maybe 300. Households is average household 5.8 people, call it 6. So you're talking 1,200 to 2,000 people in a village. That's where they're based. They're meant to be to service people in that village and in the area around them, so you might be able to reach 3,000 or 4,000 people if you put them all together. SACOs can offer larger loans up to $1,000, something on that order. We try to limit our SACOs to lending no more than $800. We want to reach more people, and we try to limit the loans to smaller amounts. We are, yeah.
Question, so when you say our SACOs, it's just those SACOs that you use?
When I say our SACOs, ones we've started and have joined IRINGA Hope.
Okay, so you started those?
Yes, we start these.
Oh, okay.
That's what we do. We start them, we train them, we grow them, and we have them join our network.
And those are just similar to the SACOs throughout the rest of the country?
Well, in Tanzania, the history is that if you start a SACO, 70% of them are broke in 2 years, 95% are broke in 4 years. So there, and in the IRINGA area, there's 154 registered SACOs. There are 23 of them are ours. There are 6 others that are operating, the rest are broke. So what you see for other SACOs mainly is businesses will start them for their employees, and because the business has started it, when their employee takes out a loan, the business pays the loan back through deductions of payroll. But there's very few businesses, so there's very few of those. Other ones almost always go broke if they're not associated, like the university has a SACOs. The teachers have a SACOs, but outside of those, they generally all go broke.
They're all under the same government law.
Yes, they're all legally the same, but they go broke. Legally, we can give loans up to a year, and so we do, but most of our loans are growing season, 6, 7, 8 months. That's generally what most of them are. The SACOs are run by people elected from the village. And so in a village, you'll elect a chairman, a treasurer, a secretary, and 2 board members. You'll have at least 5. You may have more, but the minimum is 5 you will have, and really the key people is the chairman and the treasurer. They're elected members of the villages. And like I said, these things tend to be the main development vehicle. So what happens is we organize it, they elect members, we start elect officials, we start trading them. People join. They pay $10 to join. And so once they join, they can then vote on the officers, and they start savings. Savings must come first. If they want to borrow $300, they have to save $100. They have to be a member. We require them to be a member for at least 6 months before we'll consider them for a loan. So they must do that. Then they can only borrow money from us to make money. A lot of SACOs will let you borrow for anything. We won't. You can't borrow for anything other than to make. We tell people if you borrow money to spend, you get poorer. Borrow money to make money, you get richer. We want you all to be richer. We don't want you to be poor. We're not going to lend to spend, and so we don't. You also have to have 2 other people co-sign. So if you don't pay back, I'll go after the other 2 people as well as you. So we now have 3 people that we go. So and then you have to have your business plan, and we'll give you a loan. 60, and by this, wait, when I say we, I don't own anything. IRINGA Hope owns nothing. We don't run anything. So when I say we, it's kind of the royal we. This is all done by the people in the village themselves. It's a co-op. What we're doing is training, advising, monitoring, auditing, and we're just working with them to make it work right, to make sure things are operating correctly. And if somebody doesn't pay a loan, we'll go get an arrest warrant and put them in jail, which we have done. People say you can't do it. Sure you can do it. We've done it. We don't. Our attitude is that a loan, if you don't pay a loan, you stole from your neighbors. That's what we tell everyone. The SACOs belongs to all your neighbors. You don't pay it back, you stole from your neighbor, and we're not going to tolerate that. You are going to pay. And we have seized farms. We will do whatever we have to collect. Because the problem is, of course, once you let someone not pay, then no one wants to pay. Everyone walks around and says, I don't want to pay. But that's how these things go broke. That's how they go broke all the time. Is somebody takes out a big loan, they don't pay, nothing happens, nobody pays, they're broke. And we just aren't going to do that. Of our members, 65% are female-head of households, and 85% borrow for farms. There are another 15% that'll raise cattle, or we have some who started carpenter shops and furniture stores, so there are some people that are out there starting shops. but most of this is a rural area, everybody's got land, nobody can plant. Very frustrated, they know what to do, they can't do anything, so they need money, so that's really who we're serving. Now, this is the way we kind of organize, by the way. Villages will have their own SACCOs they run. So Tunga has a SACCOs, they run it, they have some money in their account. Most of the money we put in what's called the joint SACCOs. It's like a central bank. It's what ITWANI works at. It's a microfinance institute at the university we started. This central bank then is what comes and does the auditing and does the training and checks the books and so forth and so on. And when Tunga has lent their money and they want more money, they borrow from here. And the fees that they pay to borrow is what runs everything. Right now, all of these SACCOs are making money and pay all their own way and working. This is paying half of all the other costs. We hope within 2 years everything pays for everything and runs everything. We want everything run locally, owned locally, and pay for itself locally. So that's kind of where we're going. That's the overall. All of our
Got a
SACCOs...
question, Tom.
No, I can't.
You said that if they renege on their payments,
Yes.
you go after them. You
Yes.
mean the local SACCO goes after them?
Well, the procedure is, first the SACCOs goes to collect. They seize, first they seize this, they go talk to them. They don't, if that doesn't work, they seize the savings. If that isn't enough, it might be enough right there. If that isn't enough, then they go try to work out a payment with them or the other two co-signers. If that isn't working, they'll call the IRINGA Hope Joint SACCOs,
The main one.
the main one. And then we will go talk to the co-op officer and we will find them and get an arrest warrant issued and seize property.
Okay,
So
so
that's what we'll do.
they being the IRINGA.
So it
joint
starts
SAC,
here,
But the IRINGA.
eventually goes there.
Joint SACCOs will go back with arrest warrant and that, so
Yeah.
you're out of it.
Well, I'm probably driving the truck and yelling.
Okay, but at some point you will be out of it.
Oh, absolutely. And
so
Twaney
then
is
they-
getting really good at yelling.
Okay, so then they will be doing that.
Oh, absolutely.
No cement
Okay.
tennis shoes or anything.
Excuse me?
There's no cement tennis shoes.
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Not yet. Although I get mad enough. It's interesting too. The first time we arrested someone, everyone was telling me you can't do it. I said, bullshit, I can do that. No, you can't. No, you can't. And so I went down and I yelled at people and I called them thieves and liars, said I'm going to throw your butts in jail, and no you're not, you can't. So I went to the co-op officer, he says, oh, we can't do that. I said, yes you can. I yelled at him in a while. And then I went over to his boss and told him I wanted him to arrest people. He said, you can't do that. I said, yes I can. I yelled at him a while. And then I went and saw his boss and he said, we don't do that. And I said, yes you can. He yelled at him in a while. I said, okay. So then he issued a warrant, went on down. And then they said, well, we can't get the police there for 6 months. I said, yes, you can. And so I rented a bus, we took the police down, we arrested people. Got it done. Now, the last time this happened, Twaney did it. And so, I mean, the aggression and the willingness is there, but it seems like people need to feel permission. It seems like people need to feel that this is what we do and this is what we will do, and they'll do it.
So I guess what I'm getting at is that they themselves, the local people, the Tanzanians, will start doing this.
They
So
are
the
starting to
big
do this,
white-
absolutely.
White boss can get out of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I want them to do it, but it seems like they need someone to push them and give them permission and get it started, and that's, and like I said,
reputation.
last time, they didn't need me at all, the 20 went and yelled at them, and went up to the office and yelled at them, and I thought that was great. I really liked that. She's getting, if you would have seen her 4 years ago and now, what a change. She is just willing to chew anyone out. I love it. I just love it.
So,
I just love it.
you talked about what happens if a borrower doesn't return the funds, doesn't pay back the loan. What happens at the local level if one of the local SACCOs isn't, their accounting is off or they're doing something wrong?
Well, we have, if the SACCO, the SACCOs owes us money and they're not paying.
Or
We had
go
one
out to do an
SACCO, we had-
audit and there's something wrong with the books, or
Oh, well, we had
And
one
either-
problem, and we brought down the co-op officer, and he fined all the people on the board. We threw them all out and elected new people.
Okay.
So that's what we did. And that's what we do again. And if we
So
have
you're
to,
getting a good reputation.
well, I don't know if that's good.
that you will follow through.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's been, if Kent talked about empowerment. That's probably the biggest reason these things have been going broke. Most of them are started by a rich person or a government. They get a few people in and they give big loans to friends. When the friends don't pay, they don't do anything. And all the members who've saved money have lost their money now. And they can't do anything because I spent $400 to bring the police down. None of them have $400 to bring the police down. I could go talk to the co-op officer and his boss's boss. None of them knew who it was. None of them had a car. None of them could have done it. And if they showed up in the office, they probably wouldn't talk to them. So it really is true. Most of the people feel totally powerless and disenfranchised. And by joining IRINGA Hope and working with us, that's not true. We will go after things. And they know they can call us, and we will do whatever it takes. I've told the Twainy, if we have to spend $5,000 to collect $1,000, we will do it, because we want people to understand they must pay us. There's no excuse. We will collect.
What's the default rate?
1%. And
What's the interest rate?
right now we're 2% a month. I want them to go to 2.5%, because it's just a little tight to pay everything, especially up here, so I want to raise it just a little bit.
And that rate's typical of even Ravine Bank.
Yeah, it's very typical, but so I want to go raise a little bit, but I can't tell them to raise it because they are their own entity. But I'm sure they will. I'll explain. I'm going to go and talk to them, but I'm sure they will.
That may seem
But you want to know? I can't tell them.
That may seem like high interest rate, but actually in town, I've known people who paid up to 100% a month. And 30% a month is not uncommon.
Well, look.
So this is very cheap interest compared to.
I looked it up online. The average American's got $3,400 on their credit card. The average credit card is 22% a year. You look around, your neighbors are paying this. I mean, they just are. They don't think about it, but they're paying this. So I think it's reasonable. But all these things self-govern. They vote their own people in, they run it themselves, they run their own meetings, and so forth. They all self-govern, they all are profitable, and they can all grow. I said we're 50%, and what we need to do is get more capital in here. Of course, we need to get more capital in here because we have many members waiting for loans. When I left in March, I had 450 people approved and waiting for loans. That means what we could have lent $150,000 immediately. And those are just people who were approved and waiting. There are many other people that didn't even bother to apply because they knew there was no money. So that's really a challenge. But within 2 years, we expect everything to run itself. And we'll still be going. We'll still be working to help them expand, because just because they're self-funding doesn't mean they can expand. There's thousands of people waiting in our parishes. I mean, a typical parish could easily have 150 families. 150 families would take about $20,000 in capital to service. And our typical SACOs has about 8,000 available to it. So we're a long ways from meeting the needs of the people there. We are working in 40 villages. Here it kind of gives you an idea. Working doesn't mean they have working SACOs. It means we're training or organizing as well as having things actually working. But by the way, IRINGA from here to here is about 200 miles. From here to here takes me about 4 hours to drive. The roads are just, they're incredible. They're really something. So we drive around, we visit them all, but I just want to tell you a typical day. I'll drive out 4 hours, have 3 or 4 hour meeting, drive back 4 hours, get on the internet, teach my class, get up the next morning, do it again. So that's kind of my days when I'm there. We have 24 registered. I think we'll have 27 soon. The thing about registering, you see, is if you don't register and they make someone a loan, legally it's a gift. There's no way to make them pay it back.
Registered with the government.
Yeah, so you have to you want to register these things with the government. So because if I give it to you, you don't pay me back, I can't do anything. But if I'm registered, I can throw you in jail. I can go after you. So you want to register, but people do make loans without doing it. But I just want to explain that is the significance. We have 11 applications actually waiting for government action. Sometimes it'll take 2 years. We've developed good rapport, so we usually get better service. But I just want to say, we're not in control of how quickly that happens. We just apply and talk to them. We have 5 that are just starting. Last year, well, let's see, we had 99.9% repayment last year. Last year we made a little over 1,000 loans. From the day we started to now, 98.5, 98.6 all-time repayment rate. If we don't collect, probably the person died or they moved and we can't find them. That's usually when we can't collect. Because in Tanzania there's no national tracking or anything. You can easily just move, change your name. People do it all the time, can't find them. So that's for the most part, that's when we don't collect, that's happening. We now have 3,200 members, which is 18,000 people in our system at the moment. This year I think this year we made 1,300 loans, but I won't know for sure yet. Last year was a little over 1,000. This year I think we made 1,300 loans. Our members earned almost 400,000 in additional income off these loans. So our members do enormously well. Over 98% repayment this year. We have over 2,000 children that will graduate from these profits. We are the largest program in the whole country for children going to school. We're larger than anything else, and of course that's not our goal. Our goal is to increase the income, but like Kent said, you get more income, what do? You take care of your family first, which means kids go to school, they eat better, malnutrition goes away, education goes on. That's what happens year after year after year. Typical member.
That Thomas graduated from high school, is it?
Well, about half of them are graduating from, well, go until they hit high school this year. About half of these 2,000 are in secondary school, half are primary. A lot of kids don't go to primary. It costs $30, $40, $30 to $40 to send your kid to primary, and a lot of people don't have that.
That's a year or a month?
That's a year.
It's a year.
That's a year.
Wow.
You know, to go to primary, it's quote free, but you have to have a uniform. You have to have a few materials. And so it's usually around $30 expenditure. And if you don't have those, you can't go to primary.
Testing fees. Testing fees.
Yeah, and testing fees. So $30 to $40, or you can't go to primary school. Secondary school can be anywhere from $100 to $600 depending on where you go. But you can go as cheaply as $100 is what you can. But if a typical member borrowed $350 over 5 years, what would they do? They'd earn $3,500 in profits from that loan, is what they would do. It's interesting. I sometimes ask, who here ties? But I won't, you don't have to raise your hand. There's usually only a couple hands that raise. But these people tithe. Time after time after time, they're tithers. Not necessarily always to church, it may be other places too, but they're tithing. So, and by the way, if you see a village like Ahemi, my village, we started a Sacos there, the church donations have gone from 5,000 4 years ago to 12,500 now. And it's only because the incomes have gone up. It's just more than double the church's income. So the churches are benefiting terrifically from this, whether they realize it or not. But they'll donate $350. They'll spend an additional $1,400 on education. So you donate $350, $1,400 will be spent on kids' education in the next 5 years. It's amazing to me. And we've interviewed over 154 people. Sandy and I have interviewed over a period of 4 years. And you hear the same sort of numbers over and over and over again. So either everybody gets together and lies, or this is what they're doing. I tend to believe this is what they're doing. They'll spend about $700 on family nutrition. That's enough. They eat meat. You go to our villages, you walk around, you don't see kids with malnutrition. It's gone. Their hair's fine, they're growing fine, they're healthy. One of the first things they want to do is feed their kids, and they do it. They'll spend about $500 and they'll actually build a home. That gal you saw from Malinga, she walked into a mud brick home with a tin roof. It's the first time she'd ever been in a home with a floor that didn't leak all the time. It's amazing how when you move into a house like that, diseases drop. all sort of malaria drops. I mean, you're not getting in a bed where the mosquitoes fly out when you lay down, because there's actually a bed there. They don't fly out of the roof because it's metal. I mean, it's amazing how the health improves just moving in that house. They'll spend about $400 to buy some land or buy a plow or buy some pigs, try to increase your income. They will reinvest in themselves. So that's kind of what we see. It's just amazing to me what people will do with a few $100s in the villages. And like I said, we always have a waiting list. We always have a waiting list of people. I'll tell you a little about what else we're doing. We're building a building. We got a grant from the King Foundation. So this is the building we're building here, and you can see it's well underway. We're building it on the university campus, which is where our Microfinance Institute, where our workers are. We'll have that done soon. We're also putting in for our joint SACOs and AMCOs. And AMCOs is an agricultural marketing cooperative society. It's a farmers union, a co-op for our farmers. Basically, it's a place to sell seed, fertilizer, spray, and eventually where you can sell your crop. So you get, instead of getting that 30,000, you get the 40,000. So we're planning to start those, but we haven't started yet. We're just going to start it. And offices, classroom, meeting room. We have, however, formed our very first AMCOS, Agricultural Marketing Cooperative Society. It is a farmers co-op. Again, we used to have them in this country, we don't anymore. Now we have farmers co-ops, and it's just an AMCOS that got big. That's all it is. So it's basically a farmers co-op, and in the villages, that's what it'll do. Here's the first one. I mean, these aren't fancy things. But you see, the problem is the farmer gets a loan. Now he can use fertilizer. Where does he get the fertilizer? Well, he gets on the bus, rides all day into town, buys one bag of fertilizer, puts it on the bus, rides home. Next day he does the same thing. After 2 weeks, he has his fertilizer. Well, two problems, of course. A few problems. One is he paid the highest price you could possibly pay because he bought one sack at a time. Second, he gets the crummiest product you could possibly get because he only bought one sack at a time, and everybody knows you can take advantage of that guy. And the third thing, of course, is he spent 2 weeks on a bus to get some fertilizer. He's probably late putting it on because he spent 2 weeks on a bus. So what these AMCOs will do is they will sell the seed, the fertilizer, good quality, good price in the village. And they'll make money at it. But there is nothing like that around at the moment in these villages. Everybody has to go to town on the buses to do it. And so that's what we're going to develop. We expect they'll all make a lot of money for the village. Again, the money belongs to the village, not to us. They'll all make a lot of money in the village. We think they'll all be profitable within a couple of years after we get them started and going. They're not that expensive to start. We think about $2,500 a year for 3 years, and they'll make money, pay for everything. But we started our first one. We started our first one at Pomeran. We think next year that one will already be profitable, we think. About $2,500. And we hope that every village that has a SACOS has an AMCOS. If you look at small towns in the U.S., what happened in the 1800s? Everybody had a credit union, everybody had a farmer's co-op. It built the town, it built the community. We think it'll do the same thing here. We don't see why not. What we see happening is, first thing people need to do is they need to have some knowledge. Well, we've been doing that with our financial education. The Ag Institute have been teaching them farming. They know what to do. Well, then they need to have some resources, and that's the SACOS. They need to be able to borrow some money so they can do something. And the last piece, we think, is they need to have some access. They need to be able to buy the seed and fertilizer. That's what they need. And so that's what we're doing. And we believe we can get their incomes up to $4, $5 a day, $1,500. We think we can get the farm communities, the rural communities in IRINGA up to this sort of level, and that's our goal. By the way, last year, first we were reviewed a number of places. NAFACA, which is part of USAID, U.S. Foreign Aid, came and interviewed us, reviewed all our operations, looked at all our numbers and everything, and they told us we were the best run program in the entire country. So we are pleased. Now we want them to send us money. I'd rather have money and they didn't like us as much. You know, whoops, what did I do? Oh, I know what I did. The Charity Review Council, Kent worked on this, and they reviewed us for all year, and they give us their unconditional approval. So we're listed as a fully approved charity review council member.
Accountability and transparency.
Accountability and transparency. You will find all our information online, and we don't, one thing we insist on our SACOs, they must post everything. They must post who got a loan, who paid, who's behind, who isn't. We don't keep any secrets. You know, we tell people secrets are for thieves and liars. We don't want either one. And so we insist, and we think that also helps the SACOs run well and not lose money. Is everyone in the village, if you don't pay, everybody in the village knows your name, and they know how much you owe. So we do that. The Tanzanian regional government came and looked over our operations, went and visited our villages, went around with the 20. This, by the way, this is a meeting we were at. We went to Njombe, which is a region next to Iringa, expecting to meet. The bishop and his staff wanted to meet with us, and we thought there'd be 3 people. And we got there, and there was about 40 assembled to meet with us. So this was a meeting in Njombe. This is a regional co-op officer, and this is the economic security officer who had conducted the review of our operations. And what they said, we were the most effective program for family welfare in the entire region. They went through, they said, you know, your SACOS members, no malnutrition, they're all going to school, and so forth and so on. Very, very positive. They said the Western Iowa Synod have been thinking about, they are in the next district to us in Tanzania, and then Njombe, we're in Iringa, and they've been looking at us and wanting to do something, and they looked at us and they now are starting to send us money. And so we're starting to work in Njombe, which is next door. They sent us $18,000 a couple weeks ago and want us to start working on 2 villages there. And so we will go there, first 2 locations. Here's what the bishop wrote to us. Had the blessing of meeting with our leadership. What a gift to the church and the people of that country. Very pleased. They were very pleased. And so it's too bad that our synod doesn't do something like that. That's a different issue. Anyway, so we're very pleased. So we have 4 different reviews. Last year, everyone was very high marks, so we're very pleased. We think it's going to work. Here are the villages. Here are the 40 villages. These are all registered and full members, actually, and these will be, we expect, will be registered. All these are the stars we expect by year end. They'll all be registered and part of IRINGA Holt. Once they register, you see, then they pay $800 to join IRINGA Holt. And then they become members and can borrow funds and participate in decisions, and everything then is run by the people who have joined. And so those are joined. These parishes are earlier back in the process. They're just kind of starting and organizing and collecting money, and so they're further back. By next year, we'll have over 30 villages in our network. By the way, we're the only network in the entire country. Everyone else has gone broke. We are the only ones. And we're one of the very few groups of SACOs outside of businesses that exist in the whole country. Well, it's interesting, by the way, when we started, I was thinking about this the other day, went to a conference, gave a talk, and I think, you know, when we started, Lutheran World Relief told us, SACOs cannot work there, you're stupid, go away, don't do this. World Vision, if anybody gives to that, said, well, we tried this, it just doesn't work there, can't work there, it doesn't work. A co-op officer in Iringa I was talking to said, all village SACOs are doomed to failure. The people just can't be trusted. It's a government officer. USAID, when we talk to them, they say the villages lack people with enough education to manage this. You just can't run it with village people. CRDB, this is a microfinance bank in the country. They said, you're certainly going to fail. Don't even try it. See, I like to think I'm just too stupid to know what I'm going to fail. And so when all the experts tell me it isn't going to work, I'm just too dumb to know better.
I'll go high on that.
And I've just done that before, and it seems to work. Sometimes it's good to know it won't work. And no, I think the real problem, you see, is that people keep doing it the same way and not insisting on accountability, insisting on educating, re-educating, auditing. I mean, that's what's worked in this country, right? We don't let our banks run out of control, we go audit them. right? We find them, and they still steal sometimes, right? But we try to put in controls and education and training, and I think that's really kind of what's going on. And these other groups, I don't know, they just seem to think you walk away. But this is what we believe. We think they need to be run locally. Everything needs to be run locally, period. People who are part of the community know what to do with the community. What they need is training, education, monitoring. That's what they need. That's what we do. And this, by the way, means some places you can't do this. At Tungi, it took us 3 years because we had to remove 4 sets of leaders. They just didn't seem to have good leaders that would step forward and do things. And so if they won't, they won't. So if you get a village where there's nobody going to run something, we'll just move on. Because it has to be done locally. We really believe that. Accountability is a must. It's interesting, most SACOs, what they do is they threaten, and that's what was happening, and I don't threaten much. I'll yell at you, and then I'll go do something. And so that's what we do. And people are learning that that's what we do. And I think that's what you have to do to make them accountable. That's what we do. I remember I was at Tungi, and they didn't want, somebody had stolen $900, or 900,000 children, $600. And the pastor was saying, oh, we can't. By the way, we don't allow pastors as officers. We just don't. Because they want to give everything away. We don't want that. And this pastor was telling me, oh, he's a poor guy, and his wife's been sick, and his kids are sick, and on and on and on. And I said, yeah, but he owes $600. Yeah, but he has all the, and he gave me the subs. I said, but he owes $600. So we marched down to his house at Twaney and I, and we threatened him, and we told him what we were going to do with him, and 2 weeks later he paid $600. I told the pastor, if you feel sorry for him, why don't you take up a collection in church and give him $600? Oh, well, I don't have any money. And I said, well, that's fine. I don't have any money to give away either. People have to be accountable. That's what we insist on. You will be accountable. All of our locations, by the way, we bring money, we raise money, we bring money, but everybody has to contribute. And the village must first raise money. We tell them they must raise $1,000. It costs $5,000. To start, they must raise $1,000 or we won't do anything. And it's interesting how people tell me, I can't raise it, I can't raise it, can't raise it, but somehow they do. So they must first. The villages have to contribute. What we insist they do is they have leaders and run things. They get an office. They have the meetings and collect $1,000, and they come to training. If they won't do that, we're not going to do anything. And so we'll come and tell them what they have to do and remind them, but we're not going to do anything because this is their resource. It's not mine. We think the poor the poor know how to money. I'll say it. If I say it 3 times, I'll say it right. They know how to make money. The problem is, first, they didn't know exactly how much fertilizer and so forth. Well, they know that now. But then they can't afford to do it. And that's what our SACOs do. And once they can afford to do it, they're going to need some help to get some access. They're going to have to get organized a little to get their seed and fertilizer and sell. And we think that's all I shouldn't say all. We think that's what it takes, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're working on. So that's what I have to tell you. See, I took you longer. Well, we said an hour. We're an hour and 5. I'm not too late. I'm a little late. Did I answer questions? Nobody asked. Oh, I had a few questions. I probably told you more than you wanted, right? So now I'm going to introduce the guy who's going to get you to buy that condo that we've been talking about.